Hello, I'm Al from Think Twice Vintage. Something I get asked a lot is, why did I open a shop instead of purely selling vintage clothing online? What are the pros, what are the cons? How do you find it? How is it financially different to just selling online? I'm going to go through a few of the pros, a few of the cons. But first of all, it would probably be good to give you some context of how I got into vintage clothing, when and why. So around 2015, I was working just a normal office job. I just finished university and I started selling on Depop. I sold on Depop for quite a while, made some really good money just doing it part-time. Used to literally go to charity shops on my lunch break in Nottingham. I used to go to car booths, etc., what a lot of people do. So I did that for a number of years part-time. Now, my career in marketing, I basically built that up, got to the stage where I was a marketing manager. But then as I was a marketing manager, I was still doing a lot of reselling on the side, and I was essentially turning over nearly as much money as my pretty decent salary. So I was then one day, I was considering just going full-time reselling, and I was actually made redundant. I was put into an office. The company was being bought out by a bigger company, and I was made redundant. I was surplus to requirements, and I was made redundant. I worked about 2 more days there. I had redundancy pay and I went home basically, and that was the last day that I ever worked for somebody else. I used that redundancy money to buy quite a lot of stock. At this point I was still going charity shopping a lot, car boots, Facebook marketplace pickups, Gumtree, auctions, everything like that. Then started to use some rag houses, vintage wholesalers, things like that. Pre-lockdown, just before the first lockdown, it was actually towards the end of 2019. I set up a wholesale company with a friend of mine, did vintage wholesale for a number of years, had 2 warehouses, did that for quite a while. Eventually, because of lots of reasons, I sold my half of the company. I then opened Think Twice, which is here, which was 3 years ago in Belper. So I went online retail, in-person and online vintage wholesale, and now in-person retail as well as online. So I've covered quite a few bases, and I've ended up in a physical retail space. So one of the main pros is, on a weekend you can expect to make much more than you would online generally. On a Saturday in the shop, I can make maybe 2 to 3 times more than I would make on online sales, sometimes even more, sometimes 5 times more. A big con is the overheads. The price of renting a shop, some shops will have business rates on them, general bills like heating, electricity, staffing costs if you have staff, etc. The overheads build and build. Another pro is that with the amount of stock that I sell, I would have to be renting some kind of premises anyway, whether that be like a warehouse or a unit, something like that. But with having a shop, I have the space as well as being able to sell to the public. A downside is you're really controlled by factors that you cannot control, such as the weather. If it's really bad rain all day, you're not going to have a good day generally. If it snows, the day's basically a write-off. With British weather, obviously the weather's not great, so a lot of the time you can be basically washed out, which is why it's best to do a combination of physical sales in the shop and online sales to balance that out. A huge pro of having a shop is, if you're in a town like I am, or a city, you can take advantage of when they have events on, such as food festivals, Pride, art festivals, general events going on. You can really cash in on those events and have a really good day of sales. With online, obviously, those factors don't really come into play. This isn't really a pro or a con, rather it's just something that I feel like needs mentioning when it comes to having a physical shop. Is if you're an online seller, think about how much time you put into that. Time into sourcing, listing, marketing, creating content, making contacts, getting up at 6 a.m. to go to car boots, driving to suppliers, going abroad maybe to get your start. Just think about the sheer amount of time that you put into that. Then add on to that running a physical premises. It's almost like a separate business in a way. The amount of time that I have to put into small things like shop maintenance, paying the bills, etc., paying staff, making sure staff are all right. You know, you're everything in one. You're a HR manager, you're a marketing manager, you're head of maintenance, you're head of sourcing, you're the head buyer, you're absolutely everything. I would say I work maybe 60 to 70 hours a week, and that's pretty normal. I work in the shop 6 days out of 7. Usually as soon as I wake up, I start doing some kind of work. I'm generally working until on and off until about 10 o'clock at night, maybe later. I basically don't stop. I work and work and work. I love my job, so it doesn't feel like too much work most of the time. Trust me, it feels like work when you're not making a lot of money. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's really bad. As I said earlier, you're controlled in retail by factors like the weather, what time of the month it is. These factors obviously affect online sales too, but they're so amplified when it comes to physical brick and mortar retail. Obviously, sales go up, sales go down, sales rest somewhere in the middle. But one thing that never changes is your overheads. You can have a really bad couple of week period in high street retail. You can have a really, really good 2-week period in high street retail. The overheads don't care. They don't care whether you're having a good time or a bad time. My landlady wants paying, my staff want paying, my suppliers want paying, and sometimes that doesn't leave an awful lot of money to me, especially when you're trying to grow the business. If you're just sort of going round and round in circles and each month you're making the same amount of money and you're happy with that, then yeah, of course, maybe you can pay yourself like a nice steady salary. I want the business to grow from what it is. I don't necessarily want multiple shops and things like that, but I certainly want to make more money, and I certainly want the shop to look better, have better stock, have a better feel to it. And all those things basically mean you can't just keep paying yourself all the profit. You have to reinvest, reinvest, reinvest. Another pro of having a shop is you're engaging with people all the time. Sort of being a general reseller and selling online, whether that's from shed in your garden, from your bedroom, whether you've even got like a small warehouse or a big warehouse or a unit, you're generally fairly isolated. You spend a lot of time on your own, which you might enjoy, you might not. I personally do enjoy my own time and my own space and being by myself quite a lot of the time. But when I'm at work, it is nice that you get people who come in, they'll have chats with you about clothing, about the records we sell, just how their day's been. And generally that is, if you're a people person, and although I do like time to myself, I'd say I am a people person. I do like engaging in conversation. It's like having company throughout the day without them having to be your colleagues or your boss. But this is also a con. You have a lot of people that will come into your shop. I call them tire kickers. They've got no interest in buying anything. They will try things on. They will express an interest, but really they're never going to spend money. And that's fine. People can come into the shop. They don't have to buy anything. You're not obligated to buy something if you come in here. But some days, that's more or less all you'll get through the door. The public can be, not mostly, but can be a little bit rude too. And you have to have thick skin, especially when you're in a business that an awful lot of people, the general public, I'd say 90% of people don't really understand what you do. I think most people assume that my stock's donated. They don't realize that I have to go out and purchase it. They assume that I buy it from the public. There's lots of things that people don't understand about the vintage clothing business, and they don't understand what hard work it can be. So sometimes people will really test your patience. A little bonus pro is the amount of dogs that you get through the door, especially where I'm based in just on the edge of the Peak District. More or less everybody has a dog. I have dogs through the door all day. I absolutely love dogs. They're the best thing on earth, and I probably get to stroke, pat, give a treat to maybe 10 a day. It's actually one of the best things about the job. Another benefit of having a shop is that people like suppliers, people you want to network with, etc., they tend to take you a little bit more seriously. I found that when I just sold online, I would tell people, oh, I sell clothing online, or I sell on eBay, or I sell vintage clothes. And then as soon as they find out that you're selling from home, not rightly so, but you're taken less seriously, in my opinion. You're seen as, oh, you just do a little bit of this or a little bit of that. But for some reason, and it's an old school attitude and it's pretty redundant, the moment you say you have a physical shop, people generally take you more seriously. They have more time for you. And at the end of the day, it's business. It's because they assume you have more money, which actually most of the time you probably don't. And one more pro, with having a physical brick and mortar premises, you actually have a saleable business. If I ever wanted to walk away from this business one day and I wanted to sell it, I obviously have a turnover, I have my books, I have everything that shows what the business is worth. If you're just selling online, generally your business is worth the amount of value that your stock holds. Yeah, it can be worth a little bit more if you have like a huge social media following and things like that. But generally with social media followings, you are the value. So there's nothing you can sell unless you're going to continue to work for the company. However, if I wanted to, which I don't, I could sell the shop. I could sell it as not just the value of the stock that's within the premises and the assets. It would be sold based on the turnover, and it generally makes the business a little bit more saleable if I ever did want to sell it. I hope you found this useful. If you've got any questions, please drop a comment. Please subscribe. This is only my second video on YouTube. I hope to do a lot more. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. See ya.